now for the Shop Report with
Barbershop Jay.
What up, sports fans? Welcome to the Shop Report. I'm Barbershop Jay. I'll be your host for the day. Here's the lineup. The 2018 NBA season is but a few days away. And when I say a few days away, I mean it is upon us. So the cats at the shop and we at the shop, decided to put together our own preview of the upcoming NBA season. We're going to give you a brief synopsis of all 30 NBA teams in terms of who matters and who don't. Starting with the teams that matter. And when I say matter, let me say this first. There are the teams that matter or don't matter, for that matter, to the public, to the purist, and to the programmers. Now, the teams that matter to the public and the programmers are synonymous. And the teams that matter to the purist, while we do have a rooting interest in those teams that matter to both the public and the programmers, we sometimes like to put a slight variation on things. So there may be a few teams that we think that matter that you don't think matters. Get it? Starting with the teams that matter, we're going to, of course, start with none other than the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, we all are aware of the trade scenario surrounding Kyrie Irving and the additions of Isaiah Thomas, Jay Crowder, and who else did they add? Dwayne Wade. Let me first say one more thing, or add one more thing about this Kyrie Irving trade. Once it was announced or got out to the public that he wanted to trade, folks around town were venomous in their response to Kyrie and him asking for a trade. Oh, all I heard was, he don't play no D. He dribbled too much. He's not a team player. Okay, I get all of that. But what's interesting to me is, in 2015, seeing how everybody wants to take LeBron's side in this whole trade fiasco, the Cavs had a 2-1 lead in that finals. And the narrative at the time was contrary to in regards to Kyrie Irving, is contrary to what's being said about him now. In 2015, after that finals was over, after the Cavs blew a 2-1 lead with the game's so-called best player on the planet, the narrative was, if we'd have had Kyrie, we would have won. But now he done changed uniforms. All of a sudden, he ain't what he was, or he ain't the guy that used to be, or he is that guy now. You see? Make up my mind, man. All this flip-flopping. Listen here. Y'all got one more flip-flopping person to come out and flip-flop before they make it an Olympic event. Stop being mad at that dude, man, because he wanted to be his own man. I digress. So the Cleveland Cavaliers, by default, I believe, are going to be in the finals this year again. And for two reasons. One, the depth that they've added, because they did add depth. And two, because once again, when I look at the teams, I see that the Eastern Conference is relatively weak. It is, in terms of the style of play. The Cavs have a habit of playing iso ball. Oh, and one more side note, in regards to last year's finals, the Cavs could have won, if not won, they could have made it at least more competitive of a finals had they played Kevin Love at the 5 and LeBron at the 4. Think about this. LeBron at the 4 and Kevin Love at the 5 going up against Draymond Green, JaVale McGee, and Zaza Pachulia. Shoot, Draymond Green had 5 fouls by accident. And they didn't foul him out. It's about matchups, right? Not about sexy. The Cavs got caught up in playing sexy ball last year in the finals. Because if it's about matchups, which is what I thought the game was supposed to be about, then you create a mismatch with them two dudes at the 4 and 5 for Golden State's entire front court. You're going to stay at the line, and you're going to have them dudes in foul trouble like you did. And they can't hurt you, or you take the advantage or put the game back in your favor if they on the sidelines sitting down in foul trouble. But I digress. The Cavs will be back in the finals, like I said, because there's not really too many teams that can challenge them in terms of the roster and in terms of how they play. Which brings me to the Milwaukee Bucks, my East sleeper. They're built to challenge the Cavs. Jason Kidd has had enough go at this now that it's time for him to get this team over the hump. Will Jabari Parker come back from injury? I look at him, Jabari Parker that is, I look at his body type, and I ask myself, does this guy really work out? Because you hear it all the time about these guys, working out with this trainer and that trainer or whatever the case may be. But, I'm not saying he should be cut up like Antetokounmpo, the Greek freak or nothing like that. But working on your game, and not necessarily in his case, but you have to work on your weaknesses. If your weakness is your body's not in shape, you got to get in shape. If your weakness is the free throw line, you got to shoot free throws. Every time I see or hear about a guy working on his game, I always see clips or pictures of him or hear or read about a guy, his 3-point percentage. It's time for the Bucks to take that next step. Up next, the Boston Celtics. Why do they matter? Because, of course, the trade and the rumors and the news surrounding Kyrie Irving, LeBron James, and the Cleveland Cavaliers, Danny Ainge, and Brad Stevens, and so on and so forth. But from a basketball standpoint, the Celtics, in theory, have bolstered their perimeter. But what does that say, or where does that leave them when it comes to the interior and the depth? I do like Tatum, the guy out of Duke. I think that was a good pickup for the Celtics. But on the front line, the cupboard is bare. It's just not there. The Toronto Raptors, another team whose style of play is not conducive to winning the title. But they'll make every game that they're in, regular season and when they get to the playoffs, to whatever point they go, however far they go before they get ousted again, worth viewership. DeMar DeRozan, we already know what he's going to bring. And he's a player I like because he's a rarity. Almost like Rip Hamilton was with the Pistons. The guy plays the game mid-range. He's a high percentage player. He doesn't take threes like most of these dudes who got the ball in their hands 93,000% of the time. He doesn't take threes for volume or average. He takes them strategically. And I don't have a problem with that. I have a problem with a guy passing up a 2 just to shoot a 3. There's too much of that in the league. And let me ask this question, because we were having this discussion in the shop too. When it comes to the point guard position in the today BA, how many of these guys who have that acronym next to the name, PG of course, how many of these cats are floor generals? I can only name but 2 in the entire NBA. Rondo and Chris Paul, floor generals. No, not IT, Isaiah Thomas, not Steph Curry, not Kyrie, not none of them, not Damian Lillard. Yeah, they're all fantastic dribblers and have athleticism and that wow factor. But in terms of understanding how to play the game and control the pace of the game on both ends of the floor, it's only Chris Paul and Rondo. And Rondo gets a couple points shaven off for the fact that he can't hit a foul line jump shot. It's 5 defenders to 4 offensive players for whatever team Rondo playing on. That's how far they sag off him. But again, I digress. The Raptors, the question is Kyle Lowry. Every time I see these guys who got the ball in their hands 1,000,000 times a game, always trying to blow past somebody. Kyle Lowry is a big guard. Matchups don't just apply in the postseason. They apply throughout the season. See, if you play it the right way or play it the way that will, in terms of the analytics, give you a higher percentage chance to not only to win, but to win consistently and maintaining that same percentage, you have to understand, again, matchups and how you playing it. There are times when Kyle Lowry is trying to blow past guys like Eric Bledsoe when he should be taking him down in the post, i.e. Mark Jackson with the Indiana Pacers, former coach of the Golden State Warriors. So the Raptors will make some noise, I believe, in the Eastern Conference, the weak Eastern Conference, but not enough to say that they're a championship caliber team. But, hey, you got to play them out. That's why they play the games, right? The Charlotte Hornets. Interesting. Not necessarily because of the addition of Dwight Howard. But can Kemba Walker take that next step? He has to take the next step. And I don't want to hear about Jordan's influence. We already know where Michael Jordan is, what he does, and what his influence on the team is. It's up to the guys on the floor. Now, would Dwight Howard be what Dwight Howard was when he was with the Magic? Or would Dwight Howard be Dwight Howard when he was with the Lakers? He got the arm sleeve on, but that's about it. Now, truth be told, yes, he had a back injury, and that could have sped up the process in terms of his derailment production-wise. But like Chris Paul once was with Tyson Chandler, Kemba Walker now has to be that with Dwight Howard. Here's a great opportunity for Howard to get some plays ran for him, or for Kemba and Dwight to be on the same page to the point where they get more production than, I said, Chris Paul and Tyson Chandler, than Chris Paul and DeAndre Jordan. Because Dwight Howard can hit a free throw. Well, compared to DeAndre Jordan, he can hit many free throws. But you all get the idea. The Washington Wizards, one of those teams that, quote-unquote, matter. John Wall and Bradley Beal say, hey, how many other super teams are there going to be? How many people are going to keep teaming up? We formidable too. Let me tell you the one common thread amongst all these teams, in the East anyway. Used to be a time where the Eastern Conference was predicated on defense. But what I'm seeing, not only from the Eastern Conference, but the entire NBA, or entire landscape of the NBA, opponents' points allowed in terms of average. The Warriors gave up an average of 108 points a game last season. But if I'm not mistaken, we're ranked number 1 defensively. How? The Cavs were ranked 20th, and the Wizards were ranked 22nd, respectively, I believe. Got to look that up again. I don't care how much you can put on the board. If you play it right, again, you can beat them teams that everybody thinks supposed to win. You got to stop somebody to beat somebody. Can't always come down to who got the ball last. Got to understand strategy. I'm watching these teams, man, not because I'm a fan anymore. I'm an analyst, strictly. And I don't understand the strategies. Well, you give it to him and see what he can do. No, give it back to you, see what you can do. That's bad basketball, man. Pomp and circumstance is what I call it. The Wizards need to get better on the defensive end, and they need to get rid of Marcin Gortat in the middle. Because going back to the Milwaukee Bucks right quick, while everybody's still, for whatever reason, trying to copycat the Warriors in this quote-unquote small ball, the Bucks have gotten bigger, as have the Portland Trail Blazers, who we'll get to in a minute. They've gotten bigger. It's no way in the world. Because you know what, and I just thought about something else too, in terms of the Cavs and Warriors last season, and playing Love at the 5 and LeBron at the 4. The offensive prowess of both LeBron and Kevin Love, and LeBron in particular, had he played in and around the paint, where that high percentage area is what I like to call it, it would have forced the Warriors to send a second defender. And who would that second defender have been? Kevin Durant. So his length, when you pull him away from the perimeter, can't hurt you on the perimeter if you're the Cavs. And it opens up the floor for them fantastic shooters you got in J.R. Smith and Kyrie Irving. But I digress. If the Wizards don't get better defensively, yes, they have enough offensive firepower to stay with most teams in the NBA. Definitely in the East. But we've all seen it so far with this team. They fade in, they fade out. Offense comes and goes. It was true about the game then, now, and forever will be. Offense comes and goes. No matter what we say here or what we talk about or where we take the conversation or the discussion is going to always come back to, can you stop somebody? And if you stop, close your eyes for a minute and just visualize the Wizards. And when you see them play, who are they stopping? What chance do they really have? But because of that popular vote, or the vote of John Q. Public, the Wizards are a force. I guess so. And rounding out the Eastern Conference, the Brooklyn Nets. I mean, what can you say other than the fact that Prokhorov might need to sell the team or move him to Las Vegas? Because I really don't see where. I mean, D'Angelo, we'll see. I mean, he talking like he got something to prove. Well, you got to do it over there because that's a high-profile market. Even though the Knicks have been miserable, that is a high-profile market. And speaking of the New York Knicks, with the loss of Carmelo Anthony, yes, they still have Kristaps Porzingis, but all that hoopla surrounding Phil Jackson and Melo, where he going, no trade clause. Oh, Melo was going to the CBA. Oh, no, Melo was going to the Washington Generals. Oh, no, Melo was going to the Harlem Globetrotters. That causes dysfunction in a locker room and in an organization from a philosophical standpoint. Dolan, who are you going to get to come in there and build that franchise the right way around Kristaps Porzingis? Not tomorrow, but today. The Knicks ain't going nowhere, by the way. The Philadelphia 76ers, they're not one of those teams that matter, not right now, but I won't necessarily say they're one of those teams that don't matter. Simply because of what they have on the roster. Now, that only goes or gets you so far. However, I do like Joel Embiid. I need him to bring that weight down a little bit, though. But they, too, the Sixers, that is, have seemed to maybe not necessarily taken the approach, but have investigated the approach of inside out. You cause more damage over a longer period of time against a team and in a playoff format if you play the game inside out. And again, the defense in the NBA or the WNBA is so atrocious. I really cannot tell you how good the game's offensive players are because they're not challenged. The only defensive player I see that really forces a ball handler or really challenges a ball handler the way a ball handler should be challenged is Kawhi Leonard. That's why I don't have favorite teams anymore. And I'm going to keep saying it. Yeah, I am. I have a favorite player, Kawhi Leonard. After that, that's it in terms of fandom. watch the NBA, but I call it like I see it. But the 76ers have a nice young core. And with the change in the NBA draft lottery, so to speak, they can't, no more tanking. So it's now or never. And Ben Simmons, is he as good as advertised? We won't know yet. You know, coming off of an injury, well, NBA injuries to me pale in comparison to NFL injuries. You can be dismissive when it comes to talking about NBA injuries, man. They got dudes now, they crack a toenail, they out for 4 games. And that's what's crazy about this new NBA player, or this new player period, but more so the NBA player. These guys are said to be bigger, better, stronger, faster. There's more talent. They got more money. They got more of everything, but they want to do less. Wow. Unreal. The Chicago Bulls, we all know once Gabrielle and Wade left, that's all that was left. Even though they do have one player, I've only watched him in a couple of games, a couple of exhibition games so far this season, but this Lauri Markkanen appears to be a guy worth watching going forward. And if you don't get a chance to watch him, you kind of stand abreast of what he's doing. But again, it's only the exhibition season. And just like the Cleveland Browns found out, going 4-0 this year, hey, once the regular season hit, once the real stuff start flying, now we're going to see what you're made of. Now we're going to see what you're made of. But outside of marketing, I don't really expect the Bulls to be, I'd put them more in the category of one of those teams who don't matter. Now, they'll put up a fight every night, but they don't matter. The Detroit Pistons. Van Gundy got his hands, he got his work cut out for him over there. He got his hands full. What you going to do, Andre Drummond? Forget everybody else on that team. What you going to do, Andre? Ain't no way in the world. It seems bass backwards to me at times that a guy of his stature can have 6 million rebounds in the game and 6 points. Let a guy like Shaq. Now, he may not be the same size as Shaq or the same, don't have the same measurables. But I'm saying in terms of his appearance, if you would, when you see him on the he just stands out. I mean, I remember watching Inside the NBA, or there's a show that comes on with Steve, NBA Round Panel or something like that, with Ernie Johnson hosting. And Shaq talked about running to the rim as a big man. Because I knew Dennis Scott and Penny was going to feed me. He said, I made my mind up, man, I was going to get 7 points a quarter. That's 28 right there. If you get 5 points a quarter, that's 20. Ain't no way in the world, man, Drummond should ever have a game where he got far less points than he do rebounds. They ain't going nowhere either. And the Indiana Pacers, once Paul George left, what can you say about them? What, C.J. Miles? Reggie Miller is not, he's in the broadcast booth. Save it. Not going nowhere. The Atlanta Hawks, this is definitely one of my teams that don't matter. And what's crazy, they might make the playoffs too. That's how bad the Eastern Conference is to me. They got a dude over there who running their point guard, who playing point guard. He got blonde hair. Man, come on, man. What's wrong with this picture? What ain't wrong with the picture? Well, who asked you to take a picture? They done lost. Mills said they done lost about anything and everything that you could have to even try to field something that would be remotely formidable in the Eastern Conference. Now, what's that saying? They're not going nowhere. The Miami Heat, led by none other than Dion Waiters. Now, I'm not really one into all of that. It's his team. It's their team. Whose team is it? Whose team ain't it? Leadership skills and all of that. Yeah, that right there is important. But you do that by showing what you do on the. He has a perfect opportunity because there was a time when Deion was in Cleveland. His mentality was, I want to be the man. You can't be mad at a guy who wants to be better than what he's being allowed to be. You can't be mad at a guy for that. But sometimes Waiters gets in his own way. He's the guy, he wanted so bad that he makes mistakes or he rushes things or it don't turn out, the end result ain't good. He has a perfect opportunity to work with Hassan Whiteside the same way that Chris Paul worked with Tyson Chandler. And I say that because if you go back, we talk about players who got the ball a lot who make other players better. Look at Tyson Chandler before Chris Paul, during Chris Paul, and after Chris Paul in terms of production. It's one thing to come down the floor and pass to a guy in the corner who hit a three, and that gives you an assist, and that's technically making him better, I guess. Why? Because he made the shot? I don't know. When I think of a player who makes other players better, I mean creating the opportunities. Not just putting everybody in their right spots or whatever the case may be, because I don't buy that jargon and crap either. Waiters has an opportunity to become a floor general, but it starts with the mentality to want to do so. The Heat, with that understanding, could create a nice 1-2 punch. But as we've all seen, when you get to a playoff format, in order to make the playoffs and make some noise once you get to the playoffs, there are more components that you must have or that must be in place in order for somebody to pick you. And they too, not necessarily, I will say, a team that don't matter, but they not when it comes to their depth. They don't have it. As do the teams that most of the public are picking. Got to be honest right there. The Orlando Magic. Man, I wish the dude would cut his hair. Can't seem to put my finger on or get a pulse of why they aren't better than what they should be. Especially, again, in the East. They seem to be what I like to call an enigma. You can't say one way for or another way against. It's like, I mean, they'll give you what all the teams in the NBA are giving you. They have some wow factor moments. But in terms of making a difference or making some noise, I don't see it. Now, shifting our attention to the Western Conference, we're going to start with the Dallas Mavericks. And I got one name for you, Dennis Smith Jr. That's right, North Carolina State. He may not be as polished now as I project him to be, but he's twofold. Not five-tool, twofold. He's a player who has the athleticism to match just about any point guard or two guard in the NBA currently, and the willingness or the aptitude and the willingness to use that aptitude or understand the game from that floor general perspective. Because again, right now, there are only two guards or point guards in the league who I would say are true floor generals. Chris Paul and Rondo. Because if you look at it, no other point guard or guy who plays that position, you could say, if you really were honest with yourself, is a floor general. Yeah, we all know what Dirk Nowitzki brings to the table. But he's getting up there in years too, man. An NBA career, believe it or not, has an expiration date. Now, you may be able to go a little bit longer, depending on whether you pasteurized or how you was processed. You may be able to go a little bit longer than the next guy or the guy before the other guy. But at some point, like Kareem, you're going to have to say bye. But Dennis Smith Jr., he brings new life to this team. Now, they are a team that matters because of how they're structured, how the organization is structured. It's Mark Cuban, there have been things said about him as an owner or whatever it is, but, they borderline classy in how they go about things. They have principles that they go by. And for that reason, to me, they matter. And they might get some extra from their play, too. Dennis Smith will be the catalyst. My rookie of the year, by the way, is the catalyst he is for this Mavericks team. The Houston Rockets, we all know the story there. Chris Paul, James Harden, Mikal. Harden's not a leader. Well, he's not. The main attribute for a leader is doing so by example. The game today is too predicated on what's being done on the offensive end of the floor. One piece of pie does not make a whole pie. There's a reason why you have to go on the other end and stop somebody. You all are going to hear this is going to be a common theme. You see the pattern for me in terms of stopping somebody. It's not going to ever not be about that. You might win a few outscoring somebody. You might be able to outlast somebody. But the sustainability factor when it comes to that is not good. Analytically speaking, that is. Percentage-wise, it's not good. Harden plays no defense whatsoever. None. And got the nerve to be stirring up something or whatever the case may be after you hit a basket. Well, whatever happened to, I'm going to get mine, but I'm going to stop the other guy from getting his. Which, again, boggles my mind in last year's finals. The Cavs were outscored on points in the paint by a 3-1 margin. But everybody want to talk about he averaged a triple-double. Yeah, the Cavs also averaged triple digits, too. Man, anytime you score 117 points, you should win the game. If you got the game's best ever. Now, what's wrong with that picture? I digress. Chris Paul will balance the Rockets out. But again, Capella is not enough on the interior for the Rockets to really be a challenge in the West. Now, they won't be able to play at such a fast pace as they normally are used to, I don't think, with Chris Paul, because he will pace them. But James Harden gets to be the guy he don't want to be. He gets to play that too. Go on off to the side right there and just shoot. Do what you do. So while the Rockets can't stop anybody, they do matter because I got to see who going to stop them. Because they do have a offensive 1-2 punch. Chris Paul can still score now. And again, Harden will score in bunches. But I don't think, they'll definitely make the playoffs in the West, but I don't think that they'll go as far as many people might be expecting them to or hoping that they'll go with the addition of Chris Paul. Alongside Harden, of course. The Memphis Grizzlies. What else can I say about them other than the fact that they maintain their inside-out element with, of course, Marc Gasol and Conley. But they seem to never be able to find that wing player who can score for them or give them the production that they need to go along with what Conley and Gasol bring. They thought they had it in Jeff Green. Now, why the Cavs think that, I have no idea. But I digress. I don't see the Grizzlies making much more noise, especially with Zach Randolph being gone. And the grindhouse no more in the Western Conference. I will say they're one of the teams that don't matter. Because again, what goes up must come down. And they were up for quite some time. And now you can kind of see they might be on the way down. Now, you'll get your typical production from Conley and Gasol, but I don't think, because they too, like many teams anyway, they too have a depth issue. If you don't have the depth, think about one year. I can't remember the year. The San Antonio Spurs. I believe it was the second time that they saw the Miami Heat. The Spurs bench outscored the Heat's bench, I think, by an average of 45 a game. That element, and even the Warriors, I will say that this about them. They come off the bench with a guy like Sean Livingston, and again, he's a matchup nightmare for your backup, whatever. So depth is crucial. Yeah, you need the household names, but you got to have the depth to go with it. And I just don't see them as having the depth. The New Orleans Pelicans, on the other hand, even though they too don't have the depth, they have enough of a core that leaves you wanting more. Rondo, who, again, I can not for the life of me understand how this guy's a professional basketball player, but cannot hit a foul line jump shot. At least not consistently enough where teams defensively is 5-on-4. That's how far they sag off of him. Unbelievable. But on the flip side, in terms of that being a floor general and all, he's that. He's a floor general. He will utilize Anthony Davis and DeMarcus Cousins in the manner in which they should be utilized, so that if you happen to look at the score on any given night and you see that the Pelicans beat the Warriors, or the Pelicans beat the Rockets, or the Pelicans beat the Warriors. Did I say the Warriors? Sorry. The Cavs, whereas prior to going into that game or that matchup, you'd be like, man, book it. No. You'd be like, whoa, they beat them. And then after that initial, whoa, you'd be like, oh, okay, I see why. So they have enough of a core to make the playoffs, and maybe even the second round this year. But I don't see them going any further. Not this year. They still need to add a few more pieces. See, I think that and you know what, too, but Cousins, it's on him to do something about his Rasheed Wallace moments. You can't be a head case. It's one thing to have passion, but then it's another thing to be just a doggone problem. Save some of that energy for punishing the dudes on the court and not the antics. That don't, the over dramatization, that don't get you W's. You got to focus in on being a part of this group that management can add to, so that y'all can become real contenders, real challengers to any and everybody in the league. So I think they'll make the playoffs. And again, maybe even the second round. But after that, I'm not too sure. Now, if they were to somehow make it to the Western Conference Finals, now that would shock me. I don't give them much of a chance, especially if it's the Warriors, because the Warriors, again, have more to throw at you, but I'd be surprised. And the San Antonio Spurs, what can you say about it? Manu comes out and says, yeah, I played, and I appreciate the folks recognize me, my legacy, but in the end, it's going to one day be forgotten. He didn't say, ooh, look at me, give me the microphone, let me say this, let me say that, wow, let me give you a soundbite. He said, man, you know what? But that's the Spurs, though. That's their organization. You talk about first class, top rate, that's their organization. And the NBA changed the rule about stepping under a player when taking a jump shot, in particular because of what happened to Kawhi Leonard last year, who was giving the Warriors, with Kevin Durant, the business. See, I don't have a favorite team anymore because I think that the WNBA and the way it's played, which I place a lot of emphasis on, carries a lot of weight, is trash. But I do have a favorite player, and that player is Kawhi Leonard. Because he plays defense the way defense is supposed to be played. He knows how to use his hands within the confines of the no hand check rule, moves his feet well, and he challenges the ball handler and makes the ball handler, offensive player / ball handler again, have to work to get a shot. The Denver Nuggets, Oh, and the Spurs, they don't rebuild. They just reload. The Denver Nuggets, I don't see much from them either coming out of the West. The Minnesota Timberwolves, now those are one of the teams that matter in terms of the public and John Q. Because with the addition of Jimmy Butler and, of course, Andrew Wiggins and Karl Anthony Towns. But the key to the Timberwolves and whatever success they have this season is Tom Thibodeau. Getting them to play the style of defense that he played while he was in Chicago and getting them to become the offensive, not necessarily machine, but to matter offensively, unlike when he was in Chicago. But they are a team that matter because I think they are on the rise. They, too, need to add depth to their bench, but I think they're on the rise. And what can I say about the Oklahoma City Thunder? I mean, my goodness, Paul George, Carmelo Anthony, Russell Westbrook. Those are all the names that everybody's going to say first. But you know which name I'm going to say? Steven Adams. Billy Donovan needs to, while he got the cream of the crop, needs to find a way to get Steven Adams involved throughout. Doing so is the only way that they become formidable to the Warriors. Otherwise, with just the three aforementioned, it's just going to be an outscore. They might end up seeing them, the Thunder may, the Warriors that is, but it's just going to be who can outscore who. Adams makes the Warriors have to really use strategy or would have to really use strategy in order to win. The Portland Trailblazers, this is my sleeper in the West. While everybody doing that small ball, copycat, like I said before, they are the other team. They are getting bigger. Although he's a rookie, Caleb Swanigan, I want to see how Terry Stotts going to use this guy. Lillard, McCollum, they balance out the perimeter. They're going to be a problem for anybody on the offensive side. Or if you that team on the defensive side, you're going to have to bring your A game for sure. But I look for the Blazers to make some noise. They could actually be in the Western Conference Final. And if a ball bounced this way, left or right, well, hey. Might be saying bye-bye to the Warriors. But anyway, the Utah Jazz, not really much to mention there either. And again, the Golden State Warriors, everybody expects them to be back in the finals. I do and I don't. If it's not against the Blazers, there are two teams, the Blazers and the Thunder. If it's the Blazers, woo. If it's the Thunder, Warriors might be back in because we already know what they can do. Offensively anyway. But giving up 108 points a game, I'm not impressed. The Lakers, rounding out the Western Conference, the Lakers, the Suns, and the Kings, I'll say this. Kuzma for the Lakers. Maybe not so much Brandon Ingram. Josh Jackson for the Phoenix Suns. And De'Aaron Fox for the Sacramento Kings. Those are players I'm watching on those teams. But as far as those teams making any noise, I doubt it. And on that note, it's been fun, but I got to run. Appreciate y'all for checking out the Shop Report. You can also check us out on Facebook, iTunes, YouTube, and Twitter. Or email us, theshopreport365@gmail.com. And if that don't work, Google it. And remember, next time you want to know what's really going on, man, come to the shop. Walk-ins are always welcome. Holla.